You're still on Nigeria Decides on Plus TV Africa. I am Ekene Ezeji, and with me is
Felicity Ezewike.
And we're happy to say our guest is now finally with us in the studio. And welcome to Martins Lumba. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're glad you could make it. What was your initial reaction to the announcement when you began to, glean who the winner would be?
A sigh of relief that it had come, and of course it had gone. We had seen the results that...
But has it really gone? Because the opposition hasn't yet acknowledged...
No, that's the point. It has gone that the event has happened.
Okay.
So to that extent, one would say that he's glad that at least we've gone past that heat, But for the coming storm, I expect that it will gather momentum. It will take a while, but it will definitely come.
Okay, interesting. Are you relieved at the response? Because some people had anticipated that you would have some sort of violence around this. Yes. Are you relieved at the response so far?
That's why I chose the word momentum. It's not going to be immediate, but I expect that it will definitely gather. The storms will gather. The clouds will get thicker. And the reason is simply because before now, some of us had anticipated this kind of outcome. Okay. And if you saw the way everything played out, it is very clear, apparently, to some of us that this was a script well written and well acted.
Wow! Please give us some access into your crystal ball.
I think that by and large, they say that what you see usually is preceded by what you don't see. But if you have a good imagination, you'll be able to tell what all of the designs were like behind the scene. So to break it down, to make it easier for us to understand, the truth is that before now, even some of the things that happened, we saw a situation where you sent a bill and you say, we want to improve on 2015. We want our electoral process to be much more modern so that at the end of the day, we're all happy and maybe the results will come out faster and all of that. And 4 times, this was denied. Clearly, there must have been a reason behind that. That is just one. Then again,
just to stop you there, some have argued that with regards to the bill, that the bill was sent at the 11th hour, that perhaps had the bill began to be debated much earlier,
no hour is too early or too late for a good development. If you do something at the nick of time and it saves lives, it saves time, it saves resources, excellent. It can happen a minute to D-Day. Mind you, the cancellation of the election for 16th happened not even at the 11th hour. It happened on the hour.
Remind us.
It happened on the hour. So by and large, that also was part of the script. Because again, if you look at the fact that, the electoral bill was not signed, then again, you also look at the drama of the judiciary. Like some of us always argue, forget the rot in the system. The truth is, we have decided to run a democracy, a participatory democracy. We've also said that parliamentary democracy is different from the presidential democracy that we run. Now, how do we distinguish the two? The fact is, for us who run presidential democracy, the executive arrangement, we have 3 arms of government. And the truth is, these 3 arms of government are supposed to be independent. Now, you saw all that played out with the legislature. Even as we speak, that, if you like, exchange of gunfire has not ended. By the time they resume, I'm very certain that we're going to see a lot of uppercuts and more jabs. Now, you look at the judiciary. I think that blow was below the belt. Okay. And ordinarily, if you juxtapose that with what has just happened, it shows clearly that this was pre-planned.
So this is how you came to the conclusion that...
Of course, there are more. I can give you over a dozen instances.
So, but how does you...
a dozen instances.
When you make such assertions, how is that to play to the average viewer who is wanting to be reassured that what we've just witnessed is a credible election?
Well, credibility is, how will I put it? What is credibility? Credibility, just a second. Credibility for some is that you dress well. You dress well, you put your suit, you wear your whatever. But the truth is, for some of those people you see on the streets, wearing all of those nice shirts and what have you, The truth is, if they do not wear a perfume, they can't sit close to you, if you understand what I mean.
Okay.
Some of them have apparel, underwear, that is just unpresentable.
So how does that link to the point we're making?
Beautiful. Now, I'll give you an analogy. Most of us can relate very easily with the story of Solomon and the two women who were dragging a child. Nobody was there. Solomon wasn't there, I wasn't there, you weren't there. But the truth is, when we looked at the analogy, it was very crystal clear that Solomon gave a good verdict. How did we arrive at that? By deducing the facts, after the facts. Now, one woman comes and says, you know what, this dragging is getting out of hand, let's just split the child and I'll be fine. And another says, if it has come to this, you know what, keep the child. So that is where we are. The truth is, if you look at all of the drama that has led to where we are, it is so crystal clear that we are dealing with a government that is, if you like, very good in divide and rule.
Well, I have a concern, because you're not the first analyst to, allude to, some controversy or some, pre-planned action in this election. But when we continue to postulate such ideas, that the person that's watching the television right now will begin to, especially if the person is one of those that have been convinced that your vote counts. Go out, get your PVC, go out and vote. Everybody was a champion of that. And then you come up with positions like this, that this has been pre-planned, that no matter what would have happened, this is the end result. What hope is there for the ordinary Nigerian who is trying to, give the government and leadership the benefit of doubt that some real changes are occurring in our electoral process?
Okay, the hope that we can have and that we should have is that it is important that we test this particular outcome. Very necessary that we test it. By that I mean that where the opposition now stands, the PDP, and their presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, it is no longer about the election per se. It is now about the credibility of the process. Okay. And it is very important, not for his sake or for his party, but for the sake of us, the ordinary Nigerians, that we contest this outcome.
Okay, let me just also, please bear with me, put this to you. I'm sure you've come across the saying, he that comes to equity must come to equity with clean hands. Yes. Most people would find it hard to believe that the opposition party who are alleging that this hasn't been credible did not themselves get involved in some untoward, if we were to allege that was the case in the first place.
The truth is that for us in Africa, we didn't know much about cutlery until, I want to believe, about the 19th century. Okay. What that simply means is that once you put your hand in the bowl, it will be stained. You understand what I'm saying?
Keep going.
So the PDP, the APC, whoever, they must have tried their gimmicks. But the truth is...
So is it not a case of crying foul because you lost out at the game of politics?
Certainly not. Certainly not. You see, if the referee, decides to favor one side against the other, even for those in the game, chances are they may not notice. But for the people who are the audience, who are the viewers, who are the onlookers, they'll be able to say, you know what, this move is not right. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So for those of us who are outside, who have taken time, painstakingly, we've looked at the process, it appears credible, but the truth is, all of that was just a facade.
That's quite sad, because if you want to look, your position is disheartening to say the least. If, and that's a big if, that is actually what happened, because I want to always stay on the side of the Nigerian who might not be privy to some of these.
Ignorant of
exactly.
All of this,
but if you want to look at it on, on just a plain level, you see that 19 states versus 17 states. The margin per state is not even much, but what people are worried about is probably the quantity of voters, number of voters who took part in some parts of the country compared to those on the other part of the country. In some parts of the country, if we're looking at it logically, let me say logically, the PDP stronghold, they won. It might not have been with the margin that they expected, but they won. And the APC in their stronghold also won, but the margin was not as expected. So if you look at that and then look at the effort that was put up by INEC to try and communicate what is going on, I believe that from the day that the election was postponed up until the final result, there was a daily briefing of sorts. And Nigerians were represented by journalists and observers and people who were part of the system, asked questions of the umpire as to what was going on. Even the agent of the PDP was at the collation center and asked questions. All of these, most people, ordinary Nigerian would say, I mean, it looks like there was some sort of credibility, but when you come with this position, begs the question, where do we stand?
Okay, beautiful question. Let me start by digressing just a little bit. There is a controversy now in South Africa by a miracle worker who raised somebody from the dead. Now, for all of that show, beautiful show, excellent. I'm sure if Christ was to look at that, it was a wonderful replay of his own experience. However, the facts are beginning to come out. One of which was that the casket came from a different place, the body came from a different place, the ambulance that took him to wherever came from a different place.
And he had a mobile phone.
So now, but if you look at those pictures, excellent drama. I say to you, and let me borrow from the legal, the parlance that they usually use. I put it to you that what has played out in the coming days, we'll begin to hear from the mortuary people, we'll begin to hear from the people that hired, the ambulance and all of that and all of that. Are we together? The truth is that what has happened, Nigeria must not play into the hands of people who are, if you like, wicked. And I am choosing that word very carefully. I want to paraphrase Joseph Stalin of the old Soviet Union. What he said was that it really doesn't matter how you vote. In fact, the voters don't count. What counts are those who do the counting. And I'm also aware that in this very studio, I had made representations twice about photo evidence, that it was very important and critical for this election that we had evidence from the polling units. And now you can see what has played out.
Okay, please, let's be more specific, because we've hovered around it for quite a bit and you've made certain allegations. Let's try and thrash it out.
Certain assertions, from my point of view.
Okay, yes. Assertions, yes. So can you maybe pinpoint one thing, let's take one thing that you're particularly concerned about in terms of the process of the voting process.
Now we have, I want to believe, 3 weights, variables. We have what you call total votes cast. We also have total accreditation.
Okay.
However, there is something that none of us prepared for, and that is called unaccounted votes. Okay. Votes that you cannot account for. Whether ghosts came there and played with the card reader, we're not in a position to tell. Okay. But the truth is that in terms of reconciliation, going by the guideline, by the rules that INEC itself gave, which was that this time you will not come, do your accreditation and go home. As you do your accreditation, you vote.
Yes.
What that simply means is that the total votes cast
should match
must tally
with the
not might tally
accredited
under the sun. The total votes cast must tally with the total accredited votes. By must, I'm not saying must in terms of just those who vote, but also voided votes. By the time you add voided votes with total votes cast, you get your total accreditation. If accounting is to run the way this our election has run, nobody will be able to do audit successfully. And that is precisely where the problem is. Okay. This process has been totally a whitewash.
Okay, but that's a clear loophole, and I don't think we can deny that. But could you not also, in terms of giving the benefit of the doubt, understand that that loophole could easily be exploited by any party? it's not the privy, it's not privy, it's not the...
Let me tell you what we need to understand, because I've been in small caucuses discussing some of these things, strategy and all of that. And on one occasion, I said to the people with me that, you see, power is different from authority. However, the person that has power has authority as well.
Okay.
Now, the government has power, the government also has authority. Remember that the last government, there was one thing the commander-in-chief then said. He said, I have enormous powers, but I'm not going to use these powers, because if I use these powers, there is no doubt that they will be abused. Now, if you bring your mind down to the fact that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, you now ask yourself, in a government that from the three arms, only one seems to be visible as of the time we went into the elections. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
That simply means that all of the power, all of the authority was in just one arm of government, and we went into the election. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that somebody deployed soldiers. If I want to stop you and I want to excuse her, the truth is you might never know. Even in this studio, sorry to digress again, if I want to befriend you right here in her presence, right here before the cameras, nobody will know. But we'll communicate by sign language. These are facts of life. And the truth is, I am asserting that the federal government deliberately played all of this script, and in the coming days, all of these things will be exposed.
Okay, so I guess you obviously have your position, and you are of the view that a lot is wrong with the entire process. PDP is now suggesting that they could consider a rerun based on the issues you've already alluded to, and that's collated voters vis-a-vis accredited voters. And of course, he also talked about, finally, we believe that the cancellation that took place in the election impacting 2.7 million voters required to be looked into seriously. And then we also had the response of the INEC chairman to these issues. He said the difference in the valid votes and cancellation were insignificant to impact the general outcome of the election. Do you hold the INEC position to be true, or do you consider that, based on everything that you seem to know, there should be a rerun of election? Okay,
here's the thing. The INEC position is an intelligent position. It's logical. And I give it to the professor. Even when they came with jabs, he was able to dodge them, brilliantly. I listened to him. But it still doesn't change from the fact that we saw what, if you like, transpired, before the elections. And of course, on the day of the elections, I remember talking to some of my media friends that, look, this is what is going on and all of that. Having said that, I am of the view that if we do not contest this outcome, it will be a great disservice, for future generations of Nigeria. It will also impact negatively on our democracy. And so many other countries that look up to Nigeria would fall, if you like, by the wayside.
Oh, but my worry is this same PDP, when it was in power, was accused of such abuse as well, that they might have colluded and engaged in electoral fraud, just the same way they are alleging that the ruling APC must have participated in some sort of electoral fraud in order for them to win the election. Wouldn't you say they're maybe just crying wolf because they didn't get what they wanted?
Well, very interesting, tit for tat, if I understand you, an eye for an eye. But you see, for us who want to make progress, that is not a good way to go. Time is of the essence to everything that we pursue in life. That is on the one hand. Then on the other hand, there is gravity to everything. Everything has weight. The weight of 5 is not the same thing as the weight of 2. What has happened in 2019 is simply a ruthless overthrow of the will of the people. Okay,
let me just bring in this will of the people and just scrutinize it a bit, because I was fascinated by the final paragraph of the statements that Atiku Abubakar made, and it says, I hope and pray Nigerians will someday summon the courage to defend democracy, that is the only way we can move away from being the world headquarters for extreme poverty. Now, that word, summon the courage, or that phrase, is what's stuck in my mind, because at the end of the day, when we see reactions from people, I mean, obviously we haven't taken a poll across Nigeria, it seems that people have come to terms with it. We're not seeing people coming out with the force that maybe in other countries where what you're alleging, what you're not alleging, asserting has taken place. We're not seeing the kind of reaction you would have found in other climes where they will say, no, this is an injustice, we will not stand for this. And imagine if that were to be the case. Clearly, there will be a momentum behind the rejection of the opposition leader. But if he's the only one speaking like a voice in the wilderness, then which will of the people is he really representing?
Beautiful question. The truth is, if you look at the Nigerian paradox, you will be very, very embarrassed by some of the realities that we live with. Again, poverty, if you want to oppress a people, make them poor. For instance, if you increase oil subsidy, they get poorer. That is the truth. And thereafter, you can exercise extreme draconian authority over them. They become helpless. Before now, Fela had said, I no one die, I no one, and all of that. And that was like so many years ago.
Suffering and smiling.
And all of that. We're still back in the same scenario. However, what will make the difference in this particular case is just like if you've read Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, you remember that, of course, after Brutus and his gang had taken out Julius Caesar, somebody came to meet the crowd and he said, can I take a moment? And as far as Brutus and his gang were concerned, what difference will it make? But that moment changed the story. That is where we are with 2019 elections.
So anything could turn the tide.
For some of us, no matter how little our contribution is, maybe it's just 1 teaspoon, but the truth is that rudder you see when a plane is flying the plane, a pilot is flying his plane, it is that one that makes the difference, that gives it direction. We are going to give direction to this cause.
I appreciate your philosophical outlook.
No, we will not allow this to stand because it is simply ungodly.
So how do you see this? What would be the practical way to pursue things going forward now? Well, a fact is...
Practical and legal.
Yes, a fact is always a fact. I gave you an instance which we cannot, if you like, debate. An argument is not about how loud your voice is or whether you bang the table. An argument is all about rationality. If we go to the court, even when the judge does not want to take sides with you. I give you another example. When Mandela faced his trial before the racist judge, the truth is he wasn't actually expecting to be sent to prison. He was expecting maximum penalty, death, because he was guilty of treason. And as a matter of fact, the ANC had prepared a script for him to read before that judge. But as God may have it, something touched his spirit and he kept that draft aside and he spoke from his soul. And at that point, the judge took one look at him and knew that this is divine. If I kill him, I kill my soul. And that was how he ended up in prison. And we know the rest of the story. For some of us, the angels will come down on this matter.
But the possibility is also there that the judge might have looked at it. He was an international figure.
It was his discretion.
And if he had gone ahead, I don't know much of that history. If he had gone ahead and ordered that he should be killed, it would have made him even more of a martyr than he already is. So you're like working between the devil and the deep blue sea. If you make him a martyr, if you kill him, you make him a bigger martyr. If you don't kill him, you still make him a martyr. So at what level do you want to make that martyr? Don't you think that would have played more of a part than saying there is a divine... I mean, would there be... does God take sides? You ask that question. Does God take sides?
You know, God doesn't really take sides. But God is very real and very practical. And you know, when events unfold of this nature, I've used my words very carefully. I am sure that in this studio I've mentioned the word wicked, I've also used the word ungodly, and I've also used the word ruthless.
Deliberately.
Deliberately. Now, the truth of the matter is that we can say all we want to say. By the time the facts are laid bare, everybody will see crystal clear that we cannot allow this to be swallowed.
Okay, let me, because we've gone into the divine, but let me bring it back again.
Please.
Not necessarily divorcing the divine, but just looking a bit more at the things we understand.
Sorry, I was going to also mention, by the way, that Steve Biko died in the hands of the apartheid regime. A great poet, a great writer, a great martyr. He was part of the struggle, and he died before time. Okay. So some of these things happen.
Okay. Let's look at the people again, because I want to bring it back to some people.
At the end of the day, it's all about the people.
Yes, because we still want to.
Is it really? Not to interrupt you. Is it really about? Because from everything that you've said, it looks like some
grand script.
Somebody sitting behind the screen and just putting Nigerians in specific. The way you put it, and then in the same breath, you're also talking about a divine situation. You know, where you have the opposition now that the election doesn't seem to be. It's kind of confusing, because for somebody that wants to have a logical grasp of what has happened, on the one hand you postulate that this is what it is, and then on the other hand you're talking about some divine. I mean,
which one is it?
No. You have to follow the logic. I'm not saying that God is going to come down and do anything.
Of course, we know that's not
just a moment. What I'm saying is that until people wake up. I remember saying something about Julius Caesar and Antonio taking the center stage and bringing all of the reality before the people, so that the people could be aroused to understanding what had happened. Which is why I said we'll be contributing a small a teaspoon into all of this, and the momentum will build.
Okay, so now back to these people that we wanted to thrash out a bit more about.
Yes.
I want you to profile the Nigerian people and maybe help us understand what it is that we neglected to do going forward, because some of the discrepancies we discussed before you came into the studio included the fact that the people who were bothered to go and register did not show up on the day. You know, why is this? Did they not appreciate how momentous the occasion was?
Okay, let us be guided by certain facts, one of which is that padding has been happening over time. This election is relatively encouraging in terms of the numbers. But again, padding also happened. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that our register of voters is bloated. Okay? I want to believe that the total
inflated,
number...
perhaps?
Inflated, yes.
Okay.
That's probably a more appropriate word. That is what I believe. That is on the one hand. Now, on the other hand, the truth is, for those who register, that sense of enthusiasm to want to participate is missing. It is missing because over and over again, just like even in this 2019, it looks like you go under the sun, under the rain to cast your vote, and at the end of the day, it is those who count that make the difference. At the end of the day, it is those who deploy soldiers, apparently, that make the difference. And over time, you will just find that the people become very disinclined to want to participate in the process. That is one. Then again, looking at the people, the truth is, I mentioned something about divide and rule. It is not a new policy.
Okay.
The British actually used it effectively, and apparently some of our leaders have come to understand it. Before long, you begin to find traces of ethnicism, traces of religion, traces of class, traces of I'm educated, you are not educated, and all of that and all of that. And before you know, the struggle is deflated. However, if a cause is strong enough, understand what I'm saying? If a cause is strong enough, it will outlive all those who want to divide and rule. And I'll tell you why this is...
And serve as a uniting factor.
I'll tell you why this is quite, significant, the 2019. Imagine that maybe Buhari was contesting against a Southerner. The story would have been terribly dramatic, more dramatic than we are seeing now. What we're seeing is simply because a Hausa Fulani against another Hausa Fulani, a Muslim against another Muslim, within the same caliphate family, they contested for this election. The rest of us tried to take sides with who we felt would better, if you like, translate all of our aspirations to development. Now, here's the thing. which is why I said, depending on how PDP and Atiku will take this, we need to contest this. You know, this particular moment is a fine moment to bring the people together, because we're really not fighting over religion. We're really not fighting over ethnicity. We're now fighting on the side of what is proper. Therefore, we must not abandon it. It will help us to unite better. It will help us to understand precisely what is the meaning of nationalism. It will help us to identify what really progress is.
All right, now, not to drag us back, but I just, since we're talking about the issue of religion for a second and beliefs, we have the president in his speech, in his appreciation speech, thanking God for the victory. And then we're also having the PDP saying God is going to be on their side as they try to battle this out in court. And then how can we divorce religion from the electoral process? Is it even possible? Before we get your thoughts, let's watch this little a clip from the clergy in Nigeria.
I don't think our observers were out to pursue the people to say, hey, what? And again, you may cause some kind of a scenario there that, I mean, it will be uncalled for, more damage than you repairing it. So our observers were not running after those people giving money, but they simply observed that some people were giving money having voted. We therefore appeal to the INEC to ensure credible procedures and absolute transparency in the electoral process across the country in order to sustain public trust and confidence in the elections. Governments at all levels are encouraged to ensure the full engagement of security personnel in quelling clashes during and after the elections. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria is grateful to all Nigerians for their resilience and admonishes INEC to improve on the electoral systems and processes for the purposes of credible and transparent future elections in Nigeria.
We can assess the work, but whether we're going to accept the result or not, it's not our responsibility. Neither are people also encouraged not to accept the results if the results are given by INEC. Otherwise, we cause more confusion and more conflicts.
So, this, many would say, this is the role that religion should play, not more, not in deciding who becomes the leader or who is not the leader, or the choices that we make. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Talking about religion, I remember that I want to believe, probably in this studio, I said something about the inconsistencies in the system. How do I mean? Nigeria, we always say Federal Republic of Nigeria, but are we really Republican? Are we really a republic? If you ask me, the answer is no. And why do I say so? I'm going to go straight to the point without, beating around the bush. If you have a caliphate within a republic, there is a problem. How do I mean? The caliphate represents not just religious authority, it also represents traditional, customary authority. And then it has political influence, or if you like, political authority. That is a big question mark. We'll leave that as it is. Now, the truth is, religion ordinarily is supposed to be a relationship with the divine. If, for instance, I want to leave my house and I say, oh God, the clouds are gathering, help me so that the rain does not meet me, I'm going for an interview, for instance. And as I step out of my house, somebody gives me an umbrella. If I touch that umbrella, my faith has died. Do you understand what I've just said? Because what I had requested was that I should be shielded from the rain by divine help. Do you understand? So, in layman's terms, religion has ordinarily nothing to do with politics. Religion should be a relationship between that that has been created, that has been given opportunity to express life within this level of existence. This table is existing just as I am existing, just as your glasses are existing. Do you understand? Existence encompasses all. Religion is simply a relationship between the object and that which brought it into being.
So it's an individual transaction.
That is what it is supposed
to be. Okay, sorry, bear with me, because as he was speaking, my mind went to other, because really the point I'm making, let me make the point first and then give you the illustrations. The point I want to make is that the caliphate, which you use to illustrate as something that does not synchronize with the Republican profile that we want, is not really unique in the sense that human beings will seek to have caliphates wherever they can. So if you think of the Vatican, they're not setting out to, I'm sure they would like to have more influence. But what you have in, and any pastor in any large church would love to have more influence. The only things that perhaps restrict them is if, the executive or some arm of government are able to put certain policies, I'm asking now, even though I seem to be stating it, in place to restrain. So perhaps that's the unique situation we find ourselves in. We don't seem to have enough legislation or enforcement of legislation to put a clear divide between the imposition of certain powers and authorities that are already in existence.
Very good. Now, let us look at the Vatican. The Vatican is a country. That's the truth.
No.
They have their ambassadors in a number of places. Now, the Vatican is a small territory within another sovereign, Italy. Now, the caliphate can be given license to operate as a country if they so choose, if we so legislate. However, going by what I said earlier, the truth is, the way we are operating, in fact, let's lay everything bare. Nigeria is not getting the full benefit of our potential simply because certain things, square pegs, round holes, certain things do not rhyme. And until we address these things, we can't move forward. The truth is, everybody is using big phones, everybody is using whatever, but you cannot really synchronize that reality with the quality of life that we live.
Let me just ask you a plain question, because I'm fascinated by the way your mind is working.
Okay.
What were your hopes going into this election? What were your expectations?
As at 2017, I had considered that an article would be a good challenge for the government, 2017. Now, as the build-up was beginning to unfold, I was very convinced that Atiku was going to have a landslide. Now, looking at the pattern of the script that played out, mind you, it is mine, not yours. It is clear that whoever wrote the script was very careful not to shake the table too much by making sure that some of these figures were not too far apart in certain places. And I want to believe that was also very deliberate.
Aren't you ascribing too much power to
script writer?
To script writer?
No,
because if you
no, certainly not. Certainly not. Let me tell you why. Because I write, and I can choose to make my, if you like, protagonist. I can put him under very tragic circumstances. I can put him under romantic circumstances. It is the discretion of the writer. However, I may also be very conscious of how people will react to what I write. Therefore, accommodating that kind of reaction, I'm likely to adjust what it is that will be the, if you like, the after effect of what I write. Therefore, I may make it milder, if you understand what I'm saying. So by and large, I'm not ascribing anything extraordinary to anybody. In fact, it is because they have not done too well, which is why I'm saying we need to challenge the process. And again, I also said that in this particular moment, Nigeria has a chance to be united. Nigeria has a chance to speak with one voice and to get it right for all time.
Okay. Since you're talking about, Atiku's candidacy, do you think maybe Tambuwal or Kwakwanso would have been better?
Okay, let me
Would
tell
they
you,
fit better into the script?
Okay, let me tell you my own understanding. Looking at the character of Atiku, as at 2017, I was convinced that he was the best challenger, and I'll tell you why.
Good.
When he was in government with Obasanjo, he had what you call some of the biggest turmoils that any vice president had ever faced. Immediately the 2003 elections were over, Obasanjo came after him. He was denied his rights with the use of the jets in the presidential fleet. Some of his officers were summarily sacked. Of course, he was denied the privileges that were, if you like, attached to his office. Now, some of these things he decided to challenge in court, and he survived 4 years. 4 years of serious assault, some of which, of course, included the fact that he had to leave PDP at the end of the day. He went to AC and contested the election. The president was determined, as at that time, to stop him. So I see in his character
some resilience,
a man that has the determination to prove his point. That is one. Tambowal does not fit that bill. Kwakwanso comes a distant third in that order. Atiku is the best man for this challenge, and I still stick with him. He will set Nigeria free.
Interesting.
All right, let's...
I was going to say he doesn't come with his own baggage, though. Clearly, you're not trying to dismiss the fact that he has corruption allegations that still trail
that is
his
what
profile.
makes us human. That is what makes us human. If you take a knife, you peel an orange, lovely. You use the same knife, you stab a person, the person dies. The person, they will call you a murderer, but the knife has no fault in it.
Oh, interesting.
Whether you smile, whether you frown, when you're using the knife will do its job.
All right, let's move on to other issues arising from the election, and based on what you've said so far, I would expect you probably would be thinking. Let me just put the question. One of the comments that Atiku made in his statement was the militarization of the electoral process as a disservice to democracy. In your opinion, was there? I think we were having that conversation before you came in. Was there a militarization of the process, of this electoral process?
100%.
Why would you take that position?
Now, Nigeria has tremendous security challenges, tremendous. Of course, we know that before now, it was the case of herdsmen, Boko Haram. Eventually, herdsmen joined. And of course, we also have the issue of kidnappings and all of that happening. Now, if you leave all of those theaters and you now deploy your soldiers on the highways, on the streets, and what have you, mind you, when you say soldiering, what does it entail? It means defending territorial integrity. Essentially, that is what soldiering entails. Now, once you begin to do internal security, and mind you, within the confines of Nigeria, we have the Nigeria Police, or also we have the Mobile Police Force, we have the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense, we have road safety, we have all manner of paraphernalia that are attached to the security services within Nigeria. So why add the military? Now, this is an overkill, as far as I'm concerned. Some people did not come out to vote because they understood the meaning that once soldiers are out, you never can tell what will trigger.
But were they really as widespread across the country, like you are alluding? Because even the places where you had Boko Haram, for instance, even the Benue, where you have the headsmen, people came out to vote. The numbers in the north were quite astronomical. Like, these are people, almost 99% of the people that got their PVCs seem to have gone out to vote. Yes, same thing in Benue. Yeah. And if there was, army everywhere, would that not have, maybe veered negatively? And
just to tag on to that, even the EU observers were known to have said that the elections were conducted along generally peaceful lines.
Yeah. The truth is, like I said earlier, you see what I allow you to see since I'm in charge. That's the truth of the matter. We have seen instances where a man comes into a house, everything is all good and all glam, and he's like, oh, lovely. I like the fact that you have positioned your TV here. I like the fact that, lovely. Let me put it this way. I'm a house help, for instance, and my boss is not around. I take a phone, I do a selfie in the bedroom, 6x6 bedroom. Maybe I go to the spa, I take a photograph. And in my village, they're like, wow, Martin is having a good life. This is lovely. That is the picture I want them to see. In my heart, I know that that is not true. If the boss were around, there is no way I'll take that selfie. In fact, if eventually he gets to see the picture, I'll have a lot of explaining to do. So that is just
we're back to the scriptwriter scenario.
Excuse me. Yeah. That is what has played out. You will see what I want you to see. For instance, if I radio, I'm using this option now. If I radio a colleague of mine, say maybe at Bonica, for instance, and I say to him, a blue vehicle is going to come any minute now. It's coming with the observers. They've just left my point. Make sure everything is
in order.
Yeah. What does he do? Hey, young man, please put on your boots properly.
I get your point.
That is just
let me just ask.
The observers are not going to sleep there.
Yeah, no, let me ask this question, because the impression we're getting from hearing you speak, and you're consistent along this line, is that this scriptwriter is larger than life.
Certainly
how
not.
have we allowed, because I'm back to we the people, how have we, because election didn't just start this year.
Beautiful.
All the time you were chatting the course of Atiku Abubakar 2017, prior to then.
I've never met him, he doesn't know me.
I imagine that other people should have turned their mind to the possibilities of this moment.
Okay.
How is it that we have allowed the situation to evolve to such a point that elections seem to have taken us by surprise, and we didn't push for a more conducive environment that would give out this credible election that we're hoping for?
Okay, let me put it this way. I'm going to be very careful, but I want you to understand something, which is that what is in a man's heart is already there, even though he decides to spit it out in the morning. If I do not say what is already in my heart in the morning and say it in the evening, it doesn't mean that it got to my heart in the evening.
Okay.
Okay? Why have I just said so? I've said so because if you look at February 16, I know of friends who, as at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday, February 15, they knew that the elections weren't going to hold. Understand, it was clear that the elections weren't going to hold. So every other thing that you saw, I wasn't in Lagos as at Friday. I was in Bayelsa. But I rushed down to Lagos that same Friday in order to be able to vote on Saturday. Spent my money, I took the risk and all of that. It's sad that the elections didn't hold. Now, two things I need you to chew on. The elections were cancelled, postponed around 2 a.m. A winner was announced around 3 a.m. We are not witches. We don't belong to the occult. I will not say
all right, well, let's just try and wrap this up. This is an interesting conversation, but let's just try and wrap things up by asking about the other candidates in this presidential race. We had about 73 candidates. We had absentee Obieze Kwesili, who still garnered some votes, and then we had Sowore, Moalu, and the likes. Some are saying the way the results, played out might be discouraging to people who truly want to serve this country, because it seems the entire focus so far we've been talking about Atiku and Buhari and the intrigues that plays behind, and yet we have the not too young to run bill. We say younger people should take active part in politics. Now the result shows that some of these people got 5 votes, 20 votes, 30 votes, despite the effort they made, gallant effort that we all saw. They come out to try and say, this is what I have to offer to Nigeria. Will this discourage more people from participating in our elections, particularly the presidential election in this case? And
before you get into that, if you can hold the two in one hand, we were discussing before you came, because I still want to take it back to the people each time you speak. We're discussing the response of the people after we had the presidential debate. And it's fascinating that the two candidates we're now discussing are the very two who didn't show up for the debate. And yet the response of the people, it would seem, was focused on those who did not come for the debate rather than to highlight those who did. So I'm putting it to you back in the legal parlance, 2 questions in one. That perhaps we're not yet ready for this revolution that we so need, perhaps?
Okay, this is how I'm going to answer you. First of all, when we see bread, the impression we get is that, okay, tea will follow. However, when we see sliced bread, the impression is not just tea, but perhaps jam, perhaps margarine. Do you understand? It's bread all the same, but one is not sliced. So to that extent, all of these actors, 73, 91 parties, 73 presidential candidates, the truth is all of that is a joke, a very stupid joke. And I will tell you why. I'm a very pragmatic person. I've written...
Wait, sorry to take you back. We have very limited time. You're saying that all the parties, the participants, the candidates, all of them were a joke?
You know what I mean. Minus the two principal candidates. Every other person had no business contesting that election. And the results have showed. Excuse me, I'm going to break it down.
Quickly, because we have limited time.
You see, many years ago, I looked at Nigeria and I felt sorry for the direction that we were taking when it comes to reality. What is reality? I've given this analogy before. Why would Azikiwe, why will Awolowo contest an election with a Shagari and Shagari will win? Shagari will win because Azikiwe did not give room for Awolowo. Neither did Awolowo give room for Azikiwe. Do you understand what I've just said? The truth is, when you look at how these things are playing out, you asked me about Tambuwal, and I said to you, they don't have the stamina. This challenge that I'm talking about, if I meet Atiku today, I tell you it will gather momentum. Back to what you asked me. The reality on ground is that it will not discourage people, but it will make people to be much more circumspect, to be much more realistic about their pursuits. If I join forces with this other man and we have a chain, chances are we'll be able to resist the onslaught of the wicked. That is just it.
All right, we'll have to at this point. Thank you very much, Martins Lumba. It's been an intriguing conversation.
It's been an education.
It's okay.
All right, we will go on a short break. Nigeria Decides continues after. Just stay with us.